On October the 9th of 2020, Jennifer Lynn Faith and her husband James left their Dallas home to walk their dog around the neighborhood. A sudden barrage of gunfire left 49-year-old James, an American Airlines executive, with 7 critical gunshot wounds to which he ultimately succumbed. In the immediate aftermath, Jennifer portrayed herself as a grieving widow, pleading for members of the general public with information about her husband's killer to come forward. In an interview with a local media outlet, the woman recounted the fateful incident, saying, "I heard running behind me and I turned around and all of a sudden somebody just started shooting at him," calling the situation devastating. Investigators got a break in the case the following January, when they arrested 48-year-old Darren Ruben Lopez and charged him with the murder. Lopez, a Tennessee resident, was accused of driving all the way to the Faith's home in Dallas, where he laid in wait until the couple took their dog out for a walk. He gunned James down with a .45 caliber handgun, which was later found inside his Dixon County residence. It subsequently emerged that Jennifer and Lopez had dated in high school and college. The woman admitted to texting him daily to help him through a recent divorce, but denied any intimate involvement with her husband's killer. Upon seizing the pair's cell phones, however, detectives unearthed over 14,000 calls and texts they'd exchanged between September the 30th and October the 30th, many of which involved Jennifer coaching Lopez on what to say to law enforcement and how to hide evidence of the crime. In early 2021, the manipulative woman was charged with 1 count of destruction of an object with the intent to obstruct a federal investigation, after factory resetting her phone in order to hide her damning communications with Lopez. In September, prosecutors added a charge of interstate commerce in the commission of murder for hire, accusing her of persuading Lopez to commit the murder by falsely convincing him that she was being abused and also providing him with financial compensation. Jennifer pleaded guilty in February of 2022 and in June was sentenced to life in prison. Lopez entered a plea of not guilty and, as of the latest updates, was awaiting trial at the Dallas County Jail. Number 6. Boris Risevsky. Australian woman Karen Risevsky went missing on June the 29th of 2016, having last been seen at her family's Avondale Heights residence. The 47-year-old's whereabouts weren't determined until 8 months later, when a group of horticulturists came upon her remains beneath a pile of tree branches in Maidstone Regional Park. The subsequent autopsy was inconclusive in determining the cause of Karen's death. The woman's loved ones laid her to rest during a funeral service in which her husband, Boris, served as a pallbearer. By all accounts, the man seemed an innocent, grieving widower. However, in December of 2017, following an extensive police investigation involving audio recording devices and thorough analysis of CCTV footage, the authorities filed criminal charges against Boris in connection to his wife's death. The man eventually confessed to the killing, but refrained from providing a description of how she died. Prosecutors were unable to prove murderous intent on Boris's part, and he thus agreed to a plea bargain on the lesser charge of manslaughter, which carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. During a pre-sentencing hearing in the Supreme Court of Victoria, the couple's daughter, Sarah, refused to provide a victim impact statement, instead giving her father a glowing character reference. Criminal psychologist Laura Richards subsequently stated her belief that Sarah had been manipulated by her father into supporting him despite his guilty plea. Boris was sentenced to 9 years in prison, with his daughter's testimony likely serving as a mitigating factor for his seemingly lenient punishment. Number 5. Craig Rouge. In 2007, a man from the English Channel island of Guernsey was given a life sentence for the murder of 21-year-old James Dean in St. Peter Port. Years later, while Craig Rouge was incarcerated at HM Prison Dartmoor, he faced further criminal charges after it emerged that he'd conspired with his girlfriend to smuggle the synthetic cannabinoid Spice as well as mobile phones into prison. Rouge, then in his early 30s, allegedly manipulated mother of one, Katie Hayes, into doing his nefarious bidding by falsely promising her marriage. In court, Hayes was described as a scared and vulnerable young woman whom her imprisoned lover had taken full advantage of. She reportedly helped him sneak the contraband into prison by way of sheets of paper that had been soaked in the Class B drug. Both Rouge and Hayes pleaded guilty to what Plymouth Crown Court Judge Robert Linford called an extremely serious offense. In early 2022, Rouge had 2 years and 10 months added to his life sentence, while Hayes was given a suspended 12-month jail sentence and was also ordered to perform 180 hours of unpaid work. Number 4. Molina Roberts. A luxury cruise ship called the MSC Princess was raided by Australian Border Force officials with sniffer dogs shortly after docking in Sydney on August 28th of 2016. Officers reportedly found 35 kilograms of cocaine in the cabin, being shared by Canadian influencers Molina Roberts, a former escort, and Isabelle Lagasse, an ex-adult film star. An additional 60 kilograms of the illicit substance was discovered in the cabin belonging to 65-year-old Andre Tamine. The 95 total kilograms, valued at upwards of $16 million, was reported as the record for cocaine smuggled in luggage through an Australian air or seaport. The 3 Quebec natives were arrested and charged for their alleged roles in the drug smuggling operation. In court, 24-year-old Roberts claimed to have initially refused to take part in the 7-week cruise, but was manipulated into doing it by her unnamed sugar daddy. She indicated that she and Lagasse were simply tasked with making the smuggling operation look like a glamorous vacation, while others had been responsible for overseeing the actual collection of the drugs. A tearful Roberts was sentenced to 8 years in prison during a hearing in New South Wales District Court in 2018. Her counterpart received a 7.5-year sentence of her own. In May of 2021, having served her minimum sentence, Roberts was released from Australian prison, at which point she was deported back to Canada. She co-authored a book about her experience, while Lagasse reportedly signed an agreement with a Canadian production company to make a documentary about her personal story, aiming to dissuade others from getting involved in drug trafficking. Number 3. Joanna Denny. Over a 10-day period in March of 2013, 3 men were found dead from apparent stab wounds, with each of their bodies having been dumped in ditches outside the city of Peterborough, in Cambridgeshire, England. The first victim was Lucas Slabaszewski, a Polish national. The next 2 were property developer Kevin Lee and John Chapman, both of whom were killed on March the 29th. Lee was found the following day, his body having been dressed in a black sequined dress and posed suggestively in a ditch near Newborough. Shortly after the killings, a pair of male dog walkers were stabbed in the street in the cathedral city of Hereford, but both of them ultimately survived. Investigators eventually identified the perpetrator of each of the stabbings as Cambridgeshire woman Joanna Denny, who'd been aided in her killing spree by 2 men, Gary Stretch and Leslie Layton. The woman allegedly sought to kill 9 men in total, expressing a desire for her and Stretch to be like Bonnie and Clyde. Denny was accused of carrying out the murders for the sake of entertainment, at one point telling her accomplice, "I want my fun. I need you to get me my fun." In November of 2013, she pleaded guilty to each of the 3 killings, as well as the 2 additional attempted murders. Following a psychiatric evaluation, she was diagnosed with psychopathic, antisocial, and borderline personality disorders. In court, it was described how Denny had cast a spell over her male accomplices and manipulated them into doing things she wanted. The men were nevertheless punished for their actions. Stretch was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to a minimum of 19 years in prison, while Layton was jailed for 14 years after being convicted of perverting the course of justice. In February of 2014, Denny received a life sentence, with the presiding Old Bailey judge recommended that she never be released. Today's topic was requested by River Parish. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Mia Khalifa. During an appearance on the BBC show Hard Talk in September of 2019, social media influencer Mia Khalifa opened up about how she'd been manipulated into working in the adult film industry for 3 months. Back in 2014, she'd allegedly been approached on the street by people who told her she'd be well suited for nude modeling. Khalifa was subsequently given a tour of an adult film production studio before being convinced to sign a contract with jargon she didn't understand. The Lebanon-born celebrity began using a prominent social media presence to post fashion and travel content after her brief stint in adult films came to an end in 2015. She recounted being intimidated and scared by production executives who coerced her into continuing to perform despite her expressed desire to stop. Khalifa indicated that her adult film career had caused her family to disown her, which left her feeling alienated and alone. Number 1. Dion Timms Williams. In the early morning hours of July the 20th of 2021, consultant psychiatrist and father of 2 Gary Jenkins was cruelly beaten and tortured in a city park in Cardiff, Wales. The incident, which ultimately proved fatal for Jenkins 16 days later, was described as a prolonged homophobic attack carried out by a trio of assailants, 2 male and 1 female. The police subsequently arrested Dion Timms Williams, who was 16 at the time, on suspicion of being involved in the assault. Shortly thereafter, investigators reached out to Timms Williams' friend, 18-year-old Lewis Newman, for an interview. Newman claimed that the accused teenager had been staying with him on the night of the attack. Detectives gathered from other witnesses that Timms Williams had spoken about being with a pair of homeless men on the night in question and admitted to getting in a fight in Butte Park, where Jenkins was accosted. Newman was consequently taken into custody on a charge of perverting the course of justice after the police determined his testimony to have been false. In court, the young man was described as naive and having been in awe of Timms Williams, who used his feelings for her to manipulate him into helping her cover up the crime. Timms Williams and the 2 men accused of taking part in the attack with her were each sentenced to life in prison. For his role in the subsequent cover-up, Newman was sentenced to 6 months in a young offenders institution, suspended for 12 months. He was also ordered to perform 150 hours of unpaid work and pay a victim surcharge. Thanks for watching. Would you rather date someone who was an FBI-trained interrogator or never be able to tell a convincing lie? Let us know in the comments section below.